Before we even start this video, I'm gonna give you a couple of warnings or, disclaimers. The first one is that the tricks and the tips and the ideas here in this video are generally for longer tests. So we're talking 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hour long tests. The second thing is I'm gonna say a bunch of science stuff. You don't need to memorize any of it. It's just I want you to understand the thought process and eventually we get into the conclusion. Cool? Sleepiness, hunger, anxiety, stress. Those things are things you definitely don't want to have during a test. Another list of things you don't want to have during a test are hypoglycemia, hypotension, predominance of the parasympathetic nervous system during digestion, getting hungry over and over again, 5, dehydration. In this video, I'm going to try to explain and show you how to avoid these. The first two, hypoglycemia and hypotension, are related to low levels of sugar and salt. These two are generally more straightforward. If you don't eat, you don't have glucose in your system, and then you're not going to have sugars, you're not going to be able to have energy. And then if you have no salt, you may face hypo or low tension, blood pressure. Hypoglycemia, for example, can give you shakiness, confusion, and impatience. Hypotension, for example, can give you lightheadedness, blurred vision, and lack of concentration. Okay, but what about that third one with a weird name? The predominance of the parasympathetic nervous system. Let's go into the second section of this video, the autonomic nervous system. There's this thing in our body that we call autonomic nervous system. That is a system that controls some physiological responses in your body, such as digestion, respiration, heart rate, blood pressure, and sexual arousal. And to simplify this whole thing, we could divide them into the sympathetic and the parasympathetic systems. The sympathetic is related to the fight or flight reactions, whereas the parasympathetic is related to resting and digesting. So if you're working out, for example, it's the sympathetic system acting. But when you're during that post-lunch slump, semi-dead, on your couch and you barely want to breathe, that is the parasympathetic system acting. The parasympathetic system will prioritize providing blood to your heart, your muscles, and your brain, whereas the parasympathetic system will prioritize putting the blood in your digestive system. Now, think with me. If the parasympathetic system leads the blood to your digestive system and out of your brain, so think you just ate, and now the blood is going to your digestive system, not your brain. That would make sense that you work less sharply, that you're not as sharp when you're working, that you're not as efficient, not as accurate. Because if there is less blood, there's less oxygen. Therefore, your brain is not at optimal performance. And that's only gonna get worse if we're talking about those heavy foods. Because if you have heavier foods, your digestive system needs more oxygen, which means it needs more blood and less blood in your brain. So more effect there and the more tired you feel, right? Which is why we're gonna talk about what to eat pre and perhaps during your tests. And then we're gonna shift the conversation to carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, we got simple and complex carbohydrates. Their names come from their chemical structure. The simple carbs have a simpler molecular structure and are therefore easier to break down. And what's going to happen is, since it's easier and faster to break down, you're going to have a peak in glucose and then it's going to fall later. I'm going to explain in a second. This glucose peak, because of the carbs, is going to be followed by an insulin peak. And insulin is responsible for putting glucose from your blood into your cells. So that is, it reduces glycemia. So to sum up this part, when you're consuming simple carbs, you have a glucose peak, you have an insulin peak, and then they all vanish. It's all gone, and then you get hungry again. Now, the absorption of complex carbs is, as you guessed it, a lot more complex. And because the molecular structure is a lot more complicated, it takes longer to break them down. And that means that you won't have those peaks like you had with the glucose and the insulin, because now your body's breaking them down, so you're not having a peak like that that's going to fall out of nowhere. The benefit is that you're going to have energy for longer and you're not going to be facing those peaks or those post-lunch slumps. Now I'm gonna let you think about it for a second. Which foods are complex carbs and which foods are simple carbs? Yep, you guessed it. Donuts, candy, white pasta, and all of those very good things that you probably like, including white bread, are all simple carbs. Complex carbs are brown rice, oats, vegetables, fruits, all of those things that most of you avoid. Thing is, if you see people taking those long tests, you'll also find them having sandwiches full of stuff on a white bread. And then you see them with chocolate and you see all that tasty stuff. But you're not gonna see people eating a fruit, for example. Problem is, all that tasty stuff is gonna get you to go into that slump later, and then you're also gonna get hungry again later on. Okay, this should have taken care of points 3 and 4, which is, getting hungry over and over again, and then the parasympathetic system. Now, to quickly address dehydration, it can lead to headache, sleepiness, lightheadedness, and a few other things that you definitely don't want during a test. So this is your reminder to not only drink water during the test, but also on the days leading to the test. My suggestion is to always have some water with you. And if you have a water bottle and you can take the cap off and leave it kind of open and you know you're not going to spill it, leave that off because that's going to prompt you to think it is less complicated for you to drink water. As simple as it may be, taking the cap off and making it easy to drink water may lead you to be more hydrated. Now, here are a few tips on what to eat when you're preparing for a test. 1. Never go to a test while fasting. That can cause hypoglycemia and or hypotension. 2. Give preference to the complex carbs. Before a test, don't eat white pasta, chocolate, candy, ice cream. Choose oats, grains, vegetables, etc. Again, the benefit here is maintaining your energy for longer. 3. Eat smaller meals. That's because bigger meals will need more blood in the digestive system. So you don't want that. Remember, you want blood in your brain. 4. Leading up to the test, do your best to not eat anything that's not already on your diet and or in your home. I say that because you may get sick, your body may not like it, you may have some allergic reaction. Do not mess with it. Stick to what you know when that time comes. And 5, think about what you're gonna bring to the test. Prepare the night before. Now, here are a few tips on what to eat during the test. 1, what you can bring. Fruits, cashews, almonds, and if you really want chocolate, try bringing chocolates with higher percentage. So 70, 80, 90 feels like a no-go to me. 100 is, I don't even know if they sell 100, this sounds awful. But, the higher the percentage, the best this is gonna be for you. And that's because you will have less sugar in it. 2, bring water. Don't bring soda. If you're bringing the soda for the caffeine, just don't. The soda is gonna have a ton of sugar, and then you have the anxiety from the caffeine, and then the peaks from the sugar is just gonna be a whole mess. Your body just doesn't need that. 3, last thing, a lot of people like to bring mint and gum and all of that. Well, some of them have sugar, which means, they are simple carbs. So you feel like you're getting hungry, but not, and then, it's that whole situation over and over again. So if you can, avoid those as well. Okay, now you got the pre-test and the during test foods. And once you're done with the test, go eat whatever your heart desires. Go reward yourself. You're done. You don't have to worry about this until the next test.